Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing great, Calen. How are you doing?
Good.
Feels like Monday morning.
It does feel like Monday morning.
I know.
Every time we see each other, it feels like Monday morning.
I know, because it is
Monday morning.
You know, I know it's Monday morning because I wake up with an incredible sense of optimism and fear at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say, my friend.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, but I get to go do a podcast with Calen.
Yeah,
so
we
it all
get to sit
works
and have
out.
a conversation with fantastic 2% Jazz coffee, which
Oh,
your
and
coffee kills it, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, like all of our members' coffees are good, and obviously,
Yeah, of course.
we need to say that, but it's true.
I'm doing a little something with my coffee right now.
What are you doing? Are you experimenting with it?
Well, I'm kind of just taking it back a bit. I've been doing this for a lot of years,
Yeah.
right? And when I was the only coffee roaster and the only barista, it was my taste that were being expressed in the cup. And over the years, you get staff and I can't do it all. So my taste isn't being expressed in the cup as much as it could be. And I
like that. So you're throwing it back to when you drank a 2% Jazz coffee, you're drinking a piece of Sam.
Yeah, I'm putting a little bit more of me in every cup.
Oh, I love it.
And I began actually last week, and an incredibly busy week just doing that it was so challenging.
How did it feel to go back? Yeah.
Oh man, it was so good. I mean, I know I might maybe hurting some feelings. But at the same time, it makes me feel like, wow, this is exactly why I'm in business, to share something that I love. And not to say I didn't like the coffee before, because I really did. I wouldn't have sold it if I didn't.
No, of course.
But I lost track of what I really, really wanted. Like, I have what I want, but it wasn't what I really, really wanted.
Yeah.
And
totally.
so,
it makes you feel like you're back in the business too, I would think, right? Like, because that's the core, like the roasting process. And is that some of the things that you're getting into? It
is true. And this change kind of spurred from a bit of that way of thinking. Like, I felt myself, as much as I want to pull myself back from my business and work on my business, not in the business, and all those really catchy phrases. That's what I want.
Yeah.
But what I need right now is I need to inject myself back into my business a bit.
Yeah.
I need to give it a little bit of a culture shock.
Yeah.
And, the only way that everyone's going to understand what I mean by my culture at my business is by me doing it. So I've been spending a lot of time behind the bar and just working with my employees, just having fun, like working a shift with them and pulling shots. Like, I'll take bar, you take till, because I'm no good at till. So I'll do bar and just teaching through inspiring by being there, tips and tricks and stuff. But I changed my espresso this week, which it's a huge thing.
That's a really big thing.
It's a big thing. And I cannot believe how much more I'm just enjoying drinking espresso at my shops now. It's great. It's a good feeling.
And you're identifying and relating with it as your creation. And I think when you start a business and when you become an entrepreneur, and especially after how many years? I mean,
it's 25 plus,
years, right?
26,
plus. And I guess with me too, it's the same. We've had Zambries over 22 years. And obviously, you being the more creative, me being more on the business side, culture and how you want the business to run is ingrained in every entrepreneur. And the idea that you can't, it doesn't have to be, even after 25 years, it doesn't have to be what it is today. If you, the creator, can't connect with it, And I think for me too, when I go into Big Will Burger, if there's any gaps in culture, if I'm away for a long period of time or if I'm focused on a project somewhere else,
right?
I feel disconnected, but the best way to connect is getting back into the stores, seeing the staff, seeing the team, seeing how we make our product, and actually getting into the process of what we're doing. So like you, we've recently, we're switching our beef.
Oh.
And it's not something we do lightly. It's happened a couple times in our history. We're always trying to do better.
I remember the last time when Jeff made the big switch of your beef.
Yeah.
I remember that was a really positive change.
Oh, it was a fantastic change. And now we've come across through that, for that initial change, like everything leads to the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that change led us to another group that was still involved with, like, our beef comes from 63 acres. It's BC beef.
Right.
We had Alberta beef prior. I like the BC beef. I like the program. I like the ethos of 63 acres.
Yeah.
Obviously in this era of, people, climate change and looking at things causing that kind of stuff, you want to keep advancing.
Mm-hmm.
You want to work with people that are advancing their craft and making it more sustainable and looking at ways that they can do farming different or beef different. So we're switching our beef to what the heck is it called? Hanks.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
And basically what it is, it's grass fed and grass finished.
Oh, so it's not just eat corn niblets
No.
until the last day and then you get a bite of grass?
Exactly.
Okay.
So most cattle in
Corn
Canada
niblets.
is that's exactly what it is.
I guess so. The
Yeah.
word is funny to me. Sorry.
But most cattle in Canada is grass fed in stages of their life.
Right.
Obviously in Alberta, almost all Alberta beef is grass fed because it's free range. They're
Mm-hmm.
literally out in the pasture eating, which is really cool. And I think that's why Canadian beef tastes different. And it's not to say all beef's that way. It isn't. Right? There's pens and there's all those things, and it's just concentrated methane and all that stuff too. But by and large, there's a big amount of their life is spent grazing. So one of the things that they do is finish the beef with corn. So it fattens them up and
It makes it sweeter, doesn't it?
it makes it sweeter.
Is it true you can kind of taste the corn?
Yes,
almost?
yeah. And that's why in the States, they don't do corn finish. I think it's like barley or something, like it's not corn.
Huh.
So it does affect the taste at the end. So what this company does, they do a wheatgrass, but they grow their own wheatgrass. So they have like we're going to go visit the farm.
I love wheatgrass.
Well, and it saves so much water.
Huh.
Like it's their own stat, but they say that, out of the farming process, it saves 90% of the water.
Really?
Because they grow their own, if you look at all the water that's used in farming,
Yeah.
it's intense because obviously you've got to water the grass.
Well,
right?
you've got the big spigots going,
Yeah,
and you know that a good portion of that is just evaporating into the air. You can see it.
Sure, yeah,
right? So
totally.
So they're actually so they're growing
It's hydroponics.
crazy wheatgrass.
Yeah,
And so controlled water
Yeah.
is how they're saving it.
yeah.
Oh, that's
So and
brilliant.
it requires way less water, and they're doing this grass, and the life cycle of the growth of the grass is, I think it's like 8 days or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not like you plant grass and watch it grow and wait for it to grow, whatever. And the other thing, when cows eat grass, and that's the whole thing, and this is taking a bit of a tangent, but hopefully we'll get back to what we're talking about, is that cattle traditionally, like why farming and cattle is so impactful on the environment is not just the concentrated methane that it produces. It's the way farming is done is different now. Back in the day, before all the fields are now wheat, but back in the day they were basically hay and grass. So buffalo roamed free.
Right.
And what they did as a mechanism of what they do is they eat grass. So they take the top part of the grass and then leave the husk, and then the husk grows. And that's where the carbon capture is in the husk part. So they chew down the part that gets to the husk, then it grows. And as it's growing, it's capturing all the CO2.
Right.
So if wheat doesn't capture CO2, like there's no carbon capture capabilities of wheat.
Because they're just eating the whole thing.
Well, they just get picked.
Just picked and
there's no cows in there. So basically what ends up happening is the cow eats the grass, right? And then moves on to the other grass, and it basically mows the grass. And the whole time it's fertilizing the grass because it's crapping.
Sure is. Yeah.
Right? So
Easy
that
in,
is the
easy out.
cycle right? So, and then as the grass grows, it's capturing more carbon out of the air. So if you have 90% of your fields being wheat based or 70% versus hay, you just removed like all of this carbon capture capability. And then also, you know, the nutrients in the soil and all this stuff. Like, it's kind of interesting. I've done a little bit of studying and as we're going through these processes, trying to figure out, because if you're an ethical company, like truly, which I believe we are as a company, you need to be, you know, examining your supply chains. You need to be making sure that you're working with companies that live up to what you're trying to do as best as you can. You don't always have companies that do it all the way. So as we stumbled on this Hank's product, you know, their whole ethos is trying to make the environment better. So they're looking at different ways. They're working with a company on Vancouver Island with seaweed, which decreases the methane component in the cow's stomach. Like
their digestion.
The digestion, it helps their digestion. So they're going to put seaweed in their feeds. This is
I want seaweed in everything. I just want to put this on the table. I want seaweed in everything.
I agree.
I want a seaweed latte.
But how cool is that?
That's really
right.
Cool.
So as we're a carbon neutral business and we're always, you know, espousing these ideas of trying to do things differently, this is what excites me about business in general, is setting your goal up here and saying, this is what I aspire to, and then working really hard to get there and making your decision, letting that ethos guide your decision making. So when it's like, is it more expensive, this beef? Yes. And we're like, okay, but what is it doing? Like, what is the product? Does this allow us to do what we do better? Yes. So, okay, well then, you know, why aren't we partnering with a company that is looking to do things better, more environmentally friendly, more sustainable, you know, less water use, and all these things. So it's kind of exciting. But which brings us to the topic of the show today, which is blowing stuff up.
Right.
And looking at your business and going, just like you did, I feel disconnected with my business. I want to get in. My product isn't exactly what I want, doesn't speak from me. Let me get back in. And then now you find all the other things that, you know, a little bit of pushback, and your staff is a little bit of, what's he doing here? You know, and then you deal with all the
guy.
Yeah, like one decision, which is a good decision for your business. Obviously, it's your business, and why would you not want it to be that way? Leads to all these other, you know, byproduct issues of that one decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing. It sounds like maybe any progressive business or any business moving forward needs to eventually question what they're doing, look at what they're doing, analyze it. And if it's not working, blow it up.
Well,
blowing it up. Now, is that a positive thing to say, to blow up parts of your business, or is it negative? I mean, it sounds negative when you say, well, we're just going to blow things up.
I think for me, it's about
controlled demolition is a better
controlled demolition. But imagine if you're playing like SimCity or these games where you're trying to build and evolve and grow. There's constant, you know, stepping forward and also taking steps back to reevaluate and also maybe changing the path. If you aren't able to change the path you're on, then you're in trouble, because you're not going to be able to adapt to changing environments that come at you. Primary example is the COVID pandemic. Like, if everybody was just like, oh, I can't open my business to just takeout. I'm just going to shut it down until it's all over. Those businesses probably had a hard time getting back into the swing of things as people's purchasing habits changed as a result of what was open, what was available, or whatnot. So if you're rigid, you're in a lot of trouble. Like, the best way, you can't be too loose. Like, you need to see your plans through to the point where you can then have some data to analyze. Because without data and without the information, then you're just going on gut or feeling or whatever, which is not a really good way to run your business. I think you need some instincts and some gut. Like, that's just what makes entrepreneurs good at what they do. But I think as far as the planning goes, and, you know, some of the stuff that we're blowing up are like POS systems and integration with the DoorDashes and our mobile app and our back office management software. Because as you grow as a business, like this data collection is pretty powerful. So you can actually see what people are buying and how much contribution, you know, like, it's not just about profit, it's about contribution. So if you sell something for $15 and it's contributing $8 and you sell X number of them, it's actually better than selling something at, $20 perhaps, but only has maybe a $7 contribution.
And that's a contribution to what? Sorry.
To your profit, basically.
Okay, great.
Right? So if you look at gross profit, gross profit, and then you have all of your fixed expenses that come off underneath.
Yes.
Right? So the contribution of every dish is different based on what the cost, how much labor has to go into it, and then what you're selling it for. So you may think my best product, like at Zambri's, for example, we're talking about changing our pork shoulder. So our pork shoulder sells, I think our pork shoulder sells for $30, for example, and our steak sells for $40. So the steak cost per portion is like $15. Right. The pork shoulder cost per portion is $5. So you're selling it for $10 more and it's $10 less cost, but the actual contribution dollars that we get into our pocket is for every one we sell, we get $25.
Well, yeah, you the other one, increase it by $10 because you're taking away from your expense line, basically, and that's a quickest, most direct way to influence your profit.
Totally, exactly. And then, so if you're going to take that off, like, you better replace it with something that has equal or greater contribution. So you can do contribution by the number of items sold, right? And over a period of time, or you can do just contribution by, so if we sell 100 steaks a month, that total dollars that contributes to our bottom line is X. If you sell, 200 of the pork shoulders, you're like, oh my God. But some people will say, oh, I wanted to change the pork shoulder without looking at the data as far as how much you take that off the menu. Now you need to sell 3 times as much as the item you put back in, right? To make yourself as profitable. So you should be looking at designing a product mix that contributes, it speaks to what you're trying to do as far as taste and the integrity of your product, but contributes as much as possible to your bottom line, which is looking at your contribution, which is the difference between what it costs you to make and what you sell it for, and then how many you sell of it. Right. Yeah, so looking at the end of the month, like, does that pork shoulder contributes $50,000 to our income, right? Like after costs and all that kind of stuff. So that $50K we use to pay wages and we use to pay rent and we use the overhead and all that kind of stuff. So
you take away the pork shoulder, all of a sudden.
So the idea, you may want to blow up your menu. Okay, well, if you're not doing the right data analysis when you build back the menu, right, then you're going to be you could be just putting your business in the hole big if you're not looking at it in that way, right? Like, and that's one of the things when you're in a creative business, people, I think people get that, restaurant and hospitality and food and drink is creative, but I don't think they truly understand, because the passion that goes into our business is intense. So a lot of what we do is driven by our passion and what we want to see of the world, but it doesn't necessarily marry with a profitable business. You know what I mean?
It would be a perfect world.
Yeah.
If it did. It'd be a lot easier.
Some of the most successful people in our industry can bridge both, or they have a partnership that covers both. The ones that struggle the most are the ones that are you can't just be pure business and you can't just be pure passion.
Right.
Because both have pitfalls. Pure business, okay, your margins look good, but you got no sales because your product lacks the passion and the heart and the soul that comes with it. And, nobody who has passion, heart, and soul wants to spend time looking at freaking numbers. They just don't. Yeah. And you don't want them to do that either, right? Unless it's really their interest. Like, not very often an artist sees themselves as a business person. They're doing the art because that's what feeds their soul, and it doesn't often marry with making money.
It's like having the two people at the head of your business, the visionary and the implementer, right?
Yes.
It's like you need someone to have the vision, to look ahead with their passion and their foresight and what the world needs and wants right now. Yeah. And then it takes someone else usually to implement that, to make it happen respectfully and professionally, so that you can afford it.
You need the person who's the passion person to listen to the other person, and likewise,
they should have equal voices.
They should have equal voices, but a lot of the times, and I've had this experience in my career in hospitality, is like, I get what you're trying to do here, and I think we can still achieve your goals
as the visionary. You're
like as the visionary and the passion person, But if we just do this, this, and this tweaking, we're going to make more money on the vision,
Right.
which is going to allow us to actually stay in business and be in business and grow. So a lot of times I've had, certain chefs, and if they aren't willing to adapt in order to make the profit, and so like it's science, right? Like you have to have all those pieces working together. It won't work. Right. And the one of the biggest resistance points I had, it didn't work. And it's not just 100% because of that, but it was a huge factor. And we need to pivot. We need to make more money off our dishes. Oh, I like the passion that you're doing, but those things are 50% food cost. And why don't we just do this and this, which will get it down to 30% or 25% or whatever it needs to be. And it just yeah. It's my dream, it's my passion. It's like, yeah, guess what? Your passion's no longer there anymore because you didn't factor enough on the business side.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no perfect solution, but like to follow your passion, you do need that business acumen so that you can be there at the end of the day when the business is still open. So that you can say, look, here's what I'm doing to be creative in this open business. If you just go just for creativity, you may not have a business to operate because it can't afford to keep the doors open, in which case, where's your passion now?
Yeah, exactly. Like you need to have both those. And even when it comes to when you talk about, blowing stuff up, and you need to swallow some pride, and you need to admit, the best thing you can do, and I think this is a good life lesson for anybody, is just really look inwards. It's not your customers, it's not the vendors, it's not, your landlord. It's not like stumbling blocks, in my experience, are always from within. So anytime I've had any personal growth or any, I'm like, man, even in relationships, it's like, wow, we're really not seeing eye to eye. And, I think she just needs to change, or he needs to change. And you can't make people change. I can't make vendors change. I can't make customers change. So what needs to happen for it to work is me to change, and a lot of people aren't ready to look at that. And in a business, you're like, okay, well, we made this decision based on the information we had a year and a bit ago. So when COVID hit, we wanted to support local. So we used Modern, and we didn't really want to do, takeout app. We did try to do our own delivery service. That didn't work. So, okay, we're now going to do the takeout thing. We think we got a good rate. Okay, good. But none of those systems integrate. So our takeout app, our POS system, and DoorDash doesn't integrate.
All good things on their own.
All good things on their own, but you're now putting this into the system, and your staff are just like, okay, this is ridiculous. I have to retype this in here, or this bell's going off, that bell's going off. And it's like, okay. So then we go, okay, guys, team, we want to support you. And even our IT company that's there that we've worked with for 20 years. And you want to support local, and you want to do all that. But when you go, okay, guys, let's integrate this stuff. Oh, we can do that. Okay, well, they're underfunded. They've got other priorities. They're wanting to grow their business because they need to grow their business for them to make money. And they don't really care. They don't seem to really care about what our interests are. So there's now you've got that disalignment. So disalignment. Anyway, I might have derailing of your alignment.
Yeah.
Right. So the train is off the tracks. And as a company, like for the last couple of years, we've been like, and we're like, we're going to move. And then we go and do some investigation. We're like, okay, well, these guys kind of are the same kind of thing. We've just invested $50,000 in this whole collective system that is kind of patchworked. So now we're looking for it as a business. We've been around, and this is specifically to do with Big Wheel. So we've been around like 12 years or 10, 11 years or something. And I'm looking for the next 10 or 15 years. Like, so we have 5 stores now. Like maybe we'll have 10 in 5 years or something. What do I want to be then? I want an integrated system, right? And it was like, okay, my manager's like, okay, I want to do this. We got to give relief to our staff. They're complaining. It affects our customer service. It affects our business, and we're not getting the right data out of it. And I'm like, okay, well, we just spent $50,000, man. Like, why we're gonna spend another 50? Like
throwing good money after bad.
Yeah, maybe
right? That feels like, or good money after good. Just, I don't know.
So you got to mentally, you got to be like, okay, we kind of should have done things differently. And a lot of the times it's just like, who's doing what we're doing and has been doing it a long time, and just copy them.
Who is doing what you're doing? I mean,
well, McDonald's, A&W, like all these we're basically a fast food joint.
Right. But you're much
No.
more, your systems are going to be way more complicated than a place like McDonald's, because you're making everything fresh. Your products take care, and you've got.
But it's still the same thing. Like it's still the exact same thing. You just put the inputs in. So they've got their systems dialed, because guaranteed they don't have like owners and managers there every day. I mean, they do. They've got their store managers, but the distance between where the decisions are being made and where they're being executed is like,
yes,
like miles, hundreds of miles apart, different countries, most likely. Of
course. Well, I guess I just have a hard time comparing Big Wheel to a McDonald's.
No, I know, and so do we.
Just because I feel so differently about them.
100%. And for me, I do too, because it does. Looking at them and saying, okay, well, what can we learn from them? I think it's wise to be doing that in anything, is looking at other people that are in your industry.
I guess I looked at Starbucks for things, right?
And also what points of difference. So the value proposition that we bring is what makes us unique. Right. But you can emphasize the uniqueness to your own detriment, because I also think it's unique to use local suppliers to do these things. Right. But as you grow your business, if they're not growing in the same way you are, with the same idea of what they want to become, and if they were, we'd be having discussions like, okay, well, this is where we want to be. Can you help us get there? What systems, how can we make this work better for you? Instead, we're like pushing them. Like, you got to make, and they're like, yeah. So we're not aligned, right? Because I would have stayed with them. I would continue to work with them. And even if it costs us more money, or if it just would have been the better thing to do. And in that's the difference between a McDonald's and us, or a Big Wheel, where they will make, and they've learned those lessons, I'm sure, over their 60, 70 year career or whatever, but they would be doing what's best for the bottom line, what's best for their workload, and what's also best for their team, because a really good system does cost money, but it's a good system for a reason. It works, and it's integrated, and it makes the staff experience better. But how, our app is going to change, like all this stuff is going to change. And that's the fear, is like, what the hell? Like, what if it doesn't work? What if we're like back to where we were and we just spend another 50 grand or 60 grand or whatever to do this? But where do I want to be in 10 years?
That's the visionary talking. Like, if you can paint the picture of where you want to be in 5, 10, 15 years, and then, it's like getting older as well. If I want, when I'm 80, to be able to bench press 150 pounds, I better start to be able to do it now, because when I'm almost 80, that's too late to start. Yeah. So if you want your systems to be working cohesively and for the betterment of your business, you got to start now. Yeah. And it might take a couple changes to get to where you need to be, but at least you're working on, you're exercising towards that goal. Yeah, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what other things have you been looking at in your business? Like, obviously that's a pretty big change for you to be back in, or even for you to recognize that your product, as good as it is, wasn't speaking to your soul or connecting in the same way it did when you started, I guess. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it is a fair statement. I mean, I think that the industry has changed for sure. The coffee industry has really developed in the last 20 years.
Which is pretty cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. I mean, the fast food industry it's made changes. I guess they've kind of branched out, but basically it's the same sort of model it's always been. Yeah. Whereas coffee has really done really a lot of growth and just become popular, and it's become a different industry. Now there's a specialty coffee industry, right? And it's important, and it's important to follow the trends that get you there and to push you forward into the future in that industry. But I don't like all the trends. Not all the trends suit me. Yeah. And that's okay. And I guess I got to realize that it's just okay to not be okay with what's going on. Yeah. in your industry, and it's okay to do things differently.
Yeah.
And I've always been a unique coffee shop with a unique character and a unique flavor profile to my coffees.
Yeah.
And I'm been finding that over the years, as I step back and take more control over my business, and especially through the pandemic, when all systems in my business, I kind of got a little bit looser.
Yeah.
I found my business and the character getting further away from me. Not because people were taking it further away. I was allowing it to move further from my heart.
Yeah.
Right. And I've been having all kinds of internal issues that I've been thinking are other people's issues. And it's like, wow, why can't this person do it like I want it to? Why can't this person do it like what I want it to? Why can't this person do it more like how I want it to do it? It's like, if I start looking around, I'm starting to point fingers at all these other people for the same thing. Maybe it's not just them, right? Like maybe it's me.
Just what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I was pointing fingers.
Of course.
And now I'm pointing fingers at myself going, really?
But isn't it's way easier to point fingers at others than it is to actually, that's where you go in here, all of a sudden you're realizing, holy crap.
Well, I found it really easy to point fingers at other people, but it's not easier to solve the problem when you're pointing fingers at other people.
No, you don't ever solve the problem.
No, and so it's
because you're the problem.
It's initially easier for your own sake, but it does not make it easier.
Because it means you don't have to do the work.
Exactly. You just point. You can just blame everything else and everybody else when really I'm the bloody owner of the company.
Exactly.
It's my vision. It's my thing, my character online. So I'm like, okay, if I want to do something about this, I better just start doing it.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I just started spending more time behind the bar and thinking about not what other people aren't doing, but how I can inspire them to do it more like I do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's fun.
I like that attitude though. Like it's about inspiring. It's not about telling.
Well, I'm a crappy manager, and I really part of my problem is I don't like to manage my own people.
Yeah,
maybe I'm not a crappy manager.
Yeah, I think you're probably. In fact, I know you're a lot better than that statement.
I've got this job right now, a little job on the side where I'm helping this other cafe owner.
Which is
manage his business, right?
Really good way to figure out what you need to do in your business. I think, right?
Absolutely, because I cannot properly manage my own people, but I certainly can manage this other people. And I can do that. Not cold-heartedly, really well, and with enthusiasm, and I pay more attention, and I'm on them, and I don't know if it's because I'm being paid to do that. Now it's more responsibility. I feel more responsible because there's a transaction, or if it's for somebody else, I just feel like an obligation to help people.
I think it's probably a little bit of those things, but in my experience when I've helped people do business plans and all that kind of stuff, it really is a good opportunity, like teaching. They say, those who can't do teach, but I also think that those that can do should teach, because it's a great way to kind of counterbalance, what the lessons that you think and remind you of the basics of what is the proper technique, what is the proper things to be looking at, which we, having been through it for 25 years, sometimes we'll lose sight of that. But then we bring it back. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, we need to have proper structure. We need to be following this. Here's the right way to do it. And then you get to look at it and go, oh, okay, I've kind of deviated in this area in my own business. So then you get to kind of sling it back. Like, I think I think more people need to be doing that and mentoring, and it's in a way of giving back, and you should be charging for your services for sure. But it's a great personal growth thing.
It is, and pointing out things to other people. You're right. It's like holding up a mirror. It's like all of a sudden I can see all the things I'm seeing in this business, in my own business.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm trying to change this for this other person because I think it's best for them.
Yeah, it's like
well,
wait a minute.
How about me? How about me and my business? Like, what's best for me, right? And so I've gotten over having the feeling of having to just appease people, and we're in hospitality, so there's a lot of appeasement to the general public.
Yeah.
And that's, I love that. That's who I am. But also, I need to be happy with my product. I need to be behind it. I need to be happy with where I'm positioning my business so I can be happy with my business. And there's been a lot of blowing up of my business model. Started all through the pandemic, right? Everyone had to make changes or blow things up in their own way. And I think I just hit all the explode buttons. I just demolished things and threw them all up in the air. And I'm actually having a hard time right now because all the pieces are starting to land. Yeah. And I'm very confident where they're going to land, and I know it will all be great. Yeah. However, watching them land not exactly where you want to. Yeah. Or expected them to. And having, because I blew up lots of different pieces all at once. Like I could handle one piece kind of falling askew. Was it like, did you go in there with like Rambo and just right out of the water? Yeah. Just out of the water. Out of the water. Makeup on. Yeah. Just rat-a-tat-tat. That's what it feels like I did now. At the time, it just felt like I was doing all the right things in all the right ways, and I was. I didn't space it out. So now, if I had spaced it out, I'd have time to allow one piece to fall incorrectly, and I'd be able to adjust and fix it, and then wait for the next piece to fall, and start to put your blocks in order. Yeah, and I did all at once, so they're all falling at once. And now it feels like, oh my God, I can't juggle them all falling. It's unmanageable. It's unmanageable. Yeah. So I just in the last month or so, I've just been watching it all fall and trying to be able to manage what's going on. And I'm really struggling trying to keep myself calm in this situation. It's not the first time I've done it. It won't be the last. And so I have every confidence that I'm going to be fine, but I forgot how nerve-wracking big change can be. I was in a really calm state of mind when I pulled the trigger on all these things. Yeah. And now it's like you spend all the money to do them. You don't realize how much money all these little changes. Oh, yeah. Even though if it's just like a policy change, it's like, that won't cost me anything. It's like $20,000 later. It's like, oh, shit, that cost me money. Yeah. And, so they all cost me money. So now it's like, cuts into the margins and cash flow tightens up, and they're like, well, I need these things to be working in order to get the benefit of them, right? Which then is the payback. Yeah, because the payback is coming. The payback's already kind of in there. Yeah, but there's not enough of it right now to compensate for all that I did. Right, like I closed one of my main sources of income. Yeah, I just closed it. Yeah, I know. Like, no, that's done. I don't want that relationship anymore. I don't want that location. Yeah, my time was up, and it felt really good. Because I remember you going through that, and I remember thinking to myself, is like, okay, well, that's got to be one of his, bigger producing stores, and you just seem very cavalier about. But you did it for the right reason. The relationship with the landlord wasn't right. It just wasn't right. The business downtown on that block wasn't ever going to come back in my mind. Yeah. Yeah. And I still believe that. I still think 100%. It's not coming back. Yeah. And I still believe I did the right thing. Yeah. But you're right. It was cavalier. Yeah. And it's like, just hitting the demolish button on all sorts of things, right? Yeah. I know it's the right decision. I did the math. Yeah. And maybe your business though, but your business. Like, in your heart of your heart that the change was needed. And the timing, it wasn't decided by you because your lease was up. Yeah. Right? Like you're making these big decisions. Every time you renew your lease, effectively you're extending your marriage by another 5 years. And do I want to be looking at this? And this is that self-evaluation that is the thread of this discussion, is so important to be looking inside internally and going, who's the problem here? And I am not going to ever change them. So I'm going to make some changes myself and see how that feels. Yeah, all those problems and all the things that I thought were problems or things that I wanted to change are just, they actually weren't real problems. They're my reaction to what was going on at the moment. And it's still the same way. Like if I go in and I see someone doing something that I don't want them to do in my business, how I react to that makes it an issue or not.
Yes, that's right.
I could walk
that's a
in
good
and
point.
it doesn't bother me, and I just go over
Yeah.
and I say, hey, it needs to be done like this. I don't make a big deal of it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I could also go in there and react differently, and I could take offense to whatever it was. I could be like, oh my God, I've asked them to do this a million times, and I can't believe they're doing this to my business or to me.
Yeah,
and
exactly. They're doing it to me.
And it's the reaction, and I want more control of my own reactions to things, so that when I do make a decision, I'm confident with it, because I usually am confident with my decisions, but how I react to how that plays out is all up to me. Yeah. It's not really up to other people to screw it up.
No.
It's up to me to navigate my reactions through whatever change is going to happen. Because change isn't always good. And even if it's on an upward trajectory, it's not just going to go in a straight line. There's always little bumps, and there's always something every day for a business owner to complain about, I'm sure. Multiple times.
Well, there should be.
There should be. Otherwise you're not really paying attention.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, how are you going to react to those everyday things?
Yeah.
And when big things come up, are you going to react the same way as you react to all those little small things? And is that going to put you over the edge? Yeah. Like I was feeling for a little while that, I was at my capacity. It's like, oh man, I don't know if what my reaction is going to be to the next thing that comes up, because I'm already feeling like I'm reacting in a negative way to things I don't need to be acting negatively towards. And the more I think about that and my reaction to things, the better I feel.
Totally. And it's interesting because I think as you're talking about those moments is, there's only so much you can control yourself. And when you do get overwhelmed with the decisions and all this coming at you and you're at your capacity, you can't be making decisions well, in my mind. I don't think it's inherently well, because you're probably having to make kind of semi-important decisions quicker because you have so much going on and maybe can't give attention, and you can't go to your staff and kind of hug them the way you want to hug them, as far as when you
can't touch your staff anymore.
No, not metaphorically.
Not
metaphorically, where you're making them feel comfortable with these changes, and you're there to kind of like grab them. They're not, metaphorically, and kind of like tell them that it's going to be okay, because that's an owner is sort of a parent when it comes to that, and those are the things. Like a lot of those little changes, it's people. We have customers, we have staff. Systems is one issue, but then you've got the people, and that's where it's not linear. And the idea that, people is linear is ridiculous. It's like this. It's an ebb and flow and a peaks and valleys, and depending on, and hopefully you're moving in the right direction positively. Like you created the culture is the sort of call it the background infusion of positivity. If you have a good culture, but then you sometimes fall in and out of the culture like a wave, but hopefully the culture over time gets better through these lessons you learn. But when you can't have the time, or don't feel like you have the time to make the right decisions, or you've got a lot of stuff going on, wow, like you can find yourself 6 months down the road and your business is totally different culture. And this happened to us at Big Wheel Burger several times, different stores, where it's just like, this is not the vision I have. Like, how do they view my business this way when I view my business completely different?
And communication, you're right. You began that thought there by saying something about communicating your ideas and the changes to your staff. And it's something I realize I have not been doing. I've been telling people what I'm doing, but I'm not giving them a warning. I'm not telling them it's going to be okay. I'm not telling them it's not you, baby. It's me.
Yeah,
I'm not giving them the proverbial coddle.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're right. I think that is really important to be aware of, that it's okay to make big changes as long as you're really conscientious and you're telling people around
you get the buy-in too.
Then they help you.
They help you.
Yeah, they make it easier.
And sometimes they point out things that you're like, oh yeah, I didn't really think about that. Thank you for that. Because they're actually working it.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
a good example is when I changed my espresso last week. I just walked in. I just walked in. I'm like, this hopper's got to change. This hopper's got to change. It was actually 2 weeks ago. I went in, I did all this. I'm like, boom, 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 boom. And everyone was like, what the hell?
Yeah,
and there was like, all of a sudden there was a group of people talking behind me going, what the hell is he doing? And it took a week for them to kind of catch up to where I was. And that all happened last week, and I went around and I made sure it was all going on the way I wanted. The coffee was tasting the way I wanted it to. But, I could have made that easier on everybody, who would then make it easier on myself. Like when you go and you change your beef supplier, you don't do that just because you've got a whim to do it.
No.
And all of a sudden, the beef is coming in a different box and no one knows what it is.
Yeah, no.
Right? You've got buy-in, I'm sure.
Yes, now.
There's
been times before where we've made decisions and just sort of like, okay, we just got to do this for whatever reason. And a lot of it was price driven. So it's constant battle because we have to buy a specific product. We don't always have choice on price. So there isn't like you have 17 different suppliers that produce, grass-fed beef and, without all the drugs and all that kind of stuff, the antibiotic free and all that kind of.
There's not many. There can't be, right?
There isn't. So, these other people, but it's again working with people that are trying to evolve their business too. So there's been new entrants to the market, and there's people that are trying different things, and so those are the things that we want to align ourselves with. But we started with like, it's so boring, but it's like SOPs, like standard operating procedures for every single thing that we do in our business. So if something happens, everybody knows what our protocols are. And sometimes, obviously, you have to change the protocols because it's not quite working.
Due to circumstance
or whatever. But you need to have an SOP for everything you do, in my opinion, especially if you're, if you have multiple stores, you're somewhat arm's length. Like you're not.
You can't be in.
You can't be in. Yeah, you can't be 2 places. You can't be in 5 places at once.
Yeah.
You have to communicate messaging, but you also need consistency. So the customer, what they're buying is the same. So there's a lot of those different things, but more importantly, it's getting down to the people and saying, communicating what your changes are and why you're doing it. And if you get their input, you'll have their buy-in. If you have their buy-in, you'll have them.
Yeah.
Right. You guys will be in alignment. If you don't have their buy-in, then you're going to be fighting until they quit.
Right.
Because they will quit because people do not like change. So if you, again, looking back at what we're talking about, which is so important, is that looking inside yourself and going, what can I do differently? How can I communicate this differently so that I can actually get the buy-in? Even though everything in your being is saying, I need to change this now. Like I want this tomorrow. And I'm going to walk in and change all the hoppers. And the whole team is going to look at you like you're freaking crazy. And then you're then going to have the fallout after of like, well, did he not respect me? Did he not value my position? This is what I do for a living for him.
Yeah.
I'm working his business, supporting him. And then you're going to have fallout. And some of that fallout will be irreparable.
Have you been talking to my staff?
Yeah. No, God. I've done the exact same things.
Yeah.
Right. And had the exact same result. And I'm like, I could have just sat them down. And sometimes there's oversharing because there's certain decisions you have to make that you can't, it's not management by committee. But I do think on the important ones, like anything, if you have half your decisions are meaningless and the other half are meaningful, spend less time on the meaningless ones consulting and more time on the meaningful ones consulting, and just splitting it. It's probably split down that middle, right? There's so many decisions that are, but if you consult on every decision, you've gone too far. But if you need to consult on the important ones, the ones that affect their day-to-day life, the ones that you're wanting their buy-in or needing their buy-in to make it work. And also their ideas. Like I want to hear all their, and some of the ideas are ridiculous, but they're starting, if you ask them questions, they're going to start thinking differently. Like they're going to be like, oh, why are they doing that? And a lot of times when you explain it, they go, oh, of course. Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Right. And now once they start thinking in the same way you're thinking or thinking, then they're going to come up with some ideas that you maybe didn't think, or how about we do it this way? Or how about we do it that way?
Well, yeah, we can't be the only ones with all the ideas for our businesses. That's for sure. I mean, we get inspired by other people around us 100%. In our private life or other people in our industry.
And why wouldn't you want to motivate your staff to be inspired?
Always.
Like I think that is as long as they're with you when they're there, why not have an environment that's conducive to inspiration and collaboration, but not on everything. Again, like whether it's the top 50% or top 20% or even top 10% of things that you need to do or change, just have their input.
Yeah, being open in your business really helps. It is how to get by. And I mean, I've got my whole plan for my business all laid out on 2 pieces of paper that are posted up in my business so that all my employees can see it. If they're interested, it's just right there.
Totally.
Here's the goal that Sam has for the direction of the company for the next 1, 3, and 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, that will change. All of that information will change.
Yeah.
And
some of it may not come to fruition and others may be totally different. But
that buy-in, just by exposing your staff to where your vision is, means that you're going to get creative input. You're going to get helpful advice. Totally. Yeah.
And you're going to give your staff an opportunity to go, because everyone's evaluating where they are in their life. So just like you're evaluating and I evaluate where we are in our business and in personal life, they do too. So if one person, like people spend, say, they spend 30 hours a week in your business working for you, 40 hours, 35, 25, whatever it is. This is a significant amount of time. So while they're there, they're going to be thinking about all the things that they want out of their life and their goals and dreams and all that stuff. Why not expose them to an opportunity to stay with you for a little bit longer, but get more involved and get more out of their job? I think people, like, if you're just doing a job that is just like, I'm pounding this piece of paper for every day and there's nothing, I have no input, there's nothing, there's static, like our businesses are so dynamic that there's a real opportunity for people to get into it in a different way, that they can get rewards, it's not just about flipping burgers or making an espresso or whatever. It's about, enjoying their time there and learning. Like, people need to learn. And there's so many interesting things. And I wish I could just teach everybody everything that I know or don't know, because I'm going to get as much back from them if I do, because they're going to say, hey,
teach, you're going to get
oh my God.
Back,
well,
right?
Just like when you're doing the consulting with the other coffee shop, is how much have you learned? And every time I help someone do a business plan, I learn so much more about my own business, or I think about it in a different way, or reminds me of what I should be doing. And a lot of it is those just basic tasks. Then you have the other thing that lays on top of that is like all these systems and processes and things that you've done, and things we did 5 years ago because it was right 5 years ago. But if you don't evaluate it and see how it impacts your business today, especially when you talk about people, because the people are the ones that change and grow. Right. So that is the dynamic that impacts the static system. Like, systems are static. Like a POS system is like, it does this. Push that button, it only does that. It's not going to do anything different. But the person, depending on how you interact, like when you go in there, change all the coffee, we're doing it this way now. And they're just like, screw you, dude.
The sky's purple now.
Yeah. It's like,
it's like, what
are you doing? Like, it's not. And you devalue me. Like, I used to have a manager, like, that used to come in. I used to be a warehouse manager for Canadian Springs Water Company. And he's still a really good friend of mine. And he was my manager. And he actually ended up working for me years later when I started my import business. So it was a really interesting dynamic. But he used to come into my warehouse and sweep my warehouse.
Really?
Like, just come in with a broom. And I think he thought he was helping or doing something. But what I was taking from it is, do you think I'm not doing my job?
Yes.
Like, are you here to do my job for me? So I actually sat him down. I said, we need to talk. And he goes, what would you talk about? Like, stop sweeping my warehouse, man. Because you're basically telling me I'm not doing my job.
That's what it feels like to you.
Yeah. If you think the warehouse needs to be swept, talk to me and I'll make sure it's swept. But don't come in here and do it, because you all also send, because I had a few staff, and you send the message to them that you're not happy with their work either. So, I use that analogy so many times, like, stop sweeping my warehouse, man. Like, if you want something or need something, just let me know and I'll do it. But, don't sweep my warehouse. So when you're going in, like, if I go in, and that's why I don't ever discipline my staff directly. We have a management structure. There's a hierarchy, and, I'm there to give high fives. I'm there to give, metaphorical hugs,
Yes.
right? I'm there to listen to their stories and try to learn something about them so that I can be a part of their lives. You know, like so many people view their employees as they're just a means to an end for profitability, and I need them to have my stores open. But I'm way more interested in what they're doing in their lives and what they're interested in outside of work. And I feel like there's a good culture there because of that.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they're part of a family. And when it's way easier discussion when they're ready to move on to a different job or different career or go traveling or whatever, right. Because it's like, I'm so excited for you. Yeah. And I also have that information way ahead of time, right? Yeah. Because you build that trust. And
you get to know them more. Yeah. You can kind of foresee what's going to happen.
Totally, and you get to manage your business better.
I would always when you could hire the people that you really wanted to hire because it was a different world, then I would always try to hire people who had lots of other things going on, like whether they were an artist or a musician or going to school. Like those things took priority, so I knew that their job with me was not all that they had. Yeah. So you got a little bit of a cushion as to who this person is. Plus, they're more interesting. You have better conversations with them. I was reading somewhere the other day, and I don't know if we want to get into this or we want to make it a whole other topic, maybe is because I know we're pushing them. We're pushing the first hour. This is great.
It's awesome.
The first hour.
The first hour.
Of 7. Is when you have employees. Some employees are there to, if it's part of a career, they're like a career job, whether they're in management or not. Yeah. Are they there for your business, or are they there to make their CV look better? And at what point can you determine that with an employee, and what do you do with that?
I don't think it matters. Like,
you don't think so?
No, because for one, I think the generations that are coming through now don't care about their CV for whatever reason. Like, I don't get the sense that there's very few people that are resume building. Okay. In my opinion, just seeing where their priorities are, but also how they communicate when they can't come to work, or what, like doing it in a way that would not be conducive in resume building, because it would result in, we're not aligned in our work ethic or whatever. And not to, I mean, it's a bit of a brush that I'm painting there, but I do think the way to counter, the better approach, in my opinion, is to give them a reason to want to spend their time with you rather than just the paycheck. Right. And that's where you build in some fun events and making work fun. And then they want to spend time there. So a lot of the time, like some of the best cultures we've got are people that are working with some of their friends. It's the double-edged sword, because then they're like, oh, we're all going away this weekend, or we're all going to go traveling or whatever. So you got to accommodate for that. But they want to show up because their buddies are there and they have a socialization, which happens. And then you put on top of that the idea that the ownership or their managers care about them and also are interested in what they're doing outside. So if you have a balanced life, if you have, good work environment, and you've got some interesting things going on in your private life, or personal life, then, those two things should marry well. And you're going to be able to get more longevity out of your staff because they enjoy coming to work. And also you're accommodating for their personal stuff too. So it's kind of like this hybrid thing. So it's less about resume building and more about creating, peace and harmony throughout their life. It's almost like a balance, and it doesn't always work. Like it's kind of like pie in the sky or utopian kind of outlook. Right. It's like, we can just have peace and harmony.
Well, we only have control over up to 40 hours of their life. We can influence the rest of it by offering them a positive experience in the time 100%. They're with us.
And encouraging. And, we all have different resources that we can draw on. And, a staff member came to me, expressing that they currently live with a roommate, but they'd like to live on their own. Could I help them do that? And I'm like, I can try. So I know some people that own some rental properties and that are reasonably priced, and I'm in control of what he makes to a degree, and so is he, because now I'm like, okay, if you want to make more money, then let's do it this way, and then that can get you up to the point where you can actually afford to be living by yourself, which can then give you your quality of life. So we're making those decisions together. Wow. And he knows that he's got a partner in me in doing it. So how do you think that affects his day-to-day work life?
Right.
Knowing that I'm not just like, okay, you need to show up at 8 and you need to leave at 4 and you need to do this and it's all about me and I'm paying you and blah, blah. Because there is that idea out there still.
Yep.
You know, and I just don't think it jives. You know, when people are resume building, they'll put up with a lot because they got to build a resume to get to the next step, and they will cut you loose quicker than anything.
I guess that's where that was the point of what I was trying to bring up is that the negative part of that and how that influences people's business. I mean, I see it in industries, including our own. I can see like it with cooks.
Yeah,
especially right. Yes, always looking to go on to the next more popular restaurant, or to work with one particular person that they've always wanted to work with, and they'll use up space in your business to get to where they want to do, as opposed to using the space in your business to help you, so that eventually, you know, that business is solid. They're better at their job, and they're gonna move on eventually, naturally. But I think some people push it maybe.
Well, they do, and I think if you're there for the discussion, if you're throughout, you know, like what's going on, what are your interests, like how's your family, how's your wife, how's your girlfriend, you know, what are you doing in your free time, and you just are aware of where they're leaning, and then when opportunities come up, if you share things, you can actually plant seeds, and that maybe there is a bigger future with your company than not. And you'll get an indication of where they're going. Well, I'm studying to do this because this is what I want to do. Well, oh, wow. Okay, cool. I know somebody who does that. Why don't you guys can chat and you can kind of see. So you're actually helping them.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, wow. So this isn't an us and them. It's a we, you know, and I think that is where you really build some loyalty and mileage. And it also makes your work life better.
Sure it does.
You know, like it doesn't, if you view, it's like anything that's going on in this world today is just like, look at the humanity in the person across from you and just, you know what I mean? And just feel what they're going through and just be there, listen and talk. And like, this is what human interaction is about. Mm-hmm. It isn't about a keyboard. It isn't about making judgments. It isn't about doing any of that garbage, because it's like eating, like breaking bread.
Right.
You know, with people that you enjoy their company and you're sharing ideas and you're just talking about crazy stuff and you're just expanding your own interests. Like that's where life happens. Life doesn't happen at work necessarily, because most people work just to, you know, pay their bills and all that kind of stuff. But it's in those human interactions where life happens.
Wow.
You know?
You just described our podcast, I think.
Yes.
Looking across the counter at someone's humanity and you know, and just opening up into good conversations. That's how to get things done.
Totally. And sometimes in order to get there, you do have to take steps back, but you also have to look inside and see how you could do things differently. Mm-hmm. And it requires blowing stuff up sometimes.
Yeah. And and when you do blow things up, like we're both doing in our respective businesses, I guess it's really important to be calm, cool, and collective when the pieces start to fall back to earth.
Yes, yeah.
And to not judge other people by your own reactions to what's going on.
No, like
100%.
I love it. I think that's a great way to conclude our podcast.
That was a good one.
That was good.
Wow.
Every time we talk, I just really enjoy the discussion.
Yeah, me too.
And it feels like I'm talking to one of my closest friends. And, you know, I think I would imagine, like, I've never been to war, but I would imagine, you know, it's just like even like sport teams, and when you're going to the battle and you're fighting and you're working with a guy and you need your team. And, you know, the Bread and Butter Collective is such a good, and the vision of what we will be is still, you know, growing and developing.
Sure. But
the idea that even you and I can have these discussions and these honest things about our businesses, and, you know, I learned so much from you.
And I from you.
And learned from, you know, a lot of our other members with the Bread and Butter Collective. And we had an interesting email the other day where it was like, sell me on why I should be a member of Bread and Butter Collective.
Huh.
And I was like, and it was, you know, we have we're fortunate enough to have an Emily, who's our admin, who deals with, our membership and whatnot. And I just was like, did you even look at our website? Like if you have to ask that question, you're almost excluded in my mind, because the idea of our collective is like, I don't want to ever convince anybody to be a part of our collective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think you have to be open to the idea of sharing and learning. And that goes for everybody. It doesn't matter how established you are or how the community views you as an owner or a leader or whatever. We all got stuff to learn. And our collective is literally about, hey, how can I contribute? And then what do I need back? Like, what is happening in my business that I could use the Bread and Butter Collective for assistance?
Right.
But putting somebody in a position of trying to convince them to be a part of it, like, it's just so counterintuitive. Like, I just was like,
yeah,
and
if you have to ask, you're probably not.
No, like, it should be obvious.
Yeah.
Especially when you go through the tenets on our website and just what we're about. It's about community and sharing. And it's $100.
Right.
So it's just a token, like, it's just to cover some admin and just like token. Like, we're not a for-profit. We're not, there's no vested interest in profitability other than our own.
Although we did roll up to the podcast studio in our limos today.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Well, we got 6 assistants.
We could have shared the limo, but I kind of like my own.
No, I like my own limo too. Oh my goodness.
When you say you've never been in war, but this is the feeling of camaraderie is there. I really think that's a good example of why the Bread and Butter Collective is just that. It's a collective.
Yeah.
And we're here to share our stories, share our experience. It's not, is there a direction that we want to go in? I'm sure there is, but is it really pointed and direct, or are we just here to be supportive for each other? And in 100%. That support, we're all going to learn. And I think that if anyone is interested in being part of or wants more information about the Bread and Butter Collective, I think our conversations are a really good kind of benchmark as if you follow along with what we're doing, you agree just with the open dialogue that we seem to have here, then
that is it.
Like that, that's it, man.
Yeah, that's literally it.
That's all there is to it in my mind. Is
just be there for a discussion, and when you need help, we're here for you. And when we need help, hopefully you can provide some input and, just form decision making. And then when crises hit, we are there for each other.
Yeah.
I think that is where we are now, where we're kind of out of the major crisis. And I think the Bread and Butter Collective, in my opinion, kept me sane. And it was really nice just to weekly come and do that. And then from that, our podcast has further, expanded our ability to just kind of share ideas and communicate and talk. And
it's taught me a lot about communication.
Oh my
goodness.
Sure.
Podcasting is a real great tool for me.
Yeah. I think and there's so many things to learn. There's so many great podcasts out there. So,
oh man, I'm a big listener, big talker now.
Yeah. Big
talker.
talker.
Oh yeah. Well, shall we wrap this one
Let's
up?
Let's wrap it
cheers?
Up. Cheers, Sam.
Thanks for being
Good
my
luck.
Comrade in this.
Be kind.
Be nice.
Be nice.
And have a great week.
Have a great week. Thanks, Sam. Cheers.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, 900 Degrees Wood-Fired Pizzeria, Agrius, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Brentwood Bay Village Emporium, Nourish and Charlotte the Quail, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Hoyne Brewing, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Rain Dogs, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, Taco Stand Al Pastor, Took, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.